Hi, my name's Steve Bartlett, and welcome to Fight Back, my weekly show where I rant and rave about all the things that are bothering me about the legal system, about the political system, about anything I want to talk about. And right now, you got to be living in a cave if you don't know what the big news item is. It's the Kavanaugh hearing, where he's trying to become the next member of the United States Supreme Court, nominated by President Trump to fill the last vacancy. And of all the nominations in the past, this one is big news because the balance of power will shift completely to the right if he becomes the next Supreme Court justice. And a lot of landmark decisions that a lot of people have grown to believe would be lasting forever may be changed overnight if he becomes the next Supreme Court justice. And he's been accused of a sexual scandal by Dr. Ford, and tomorrow is the big hearing in which the United States Senate, the committee for Judicial Committee, will be actually having a hearing so that this alleged victim of sexual abuse by Mr. Kavanaugh will have her chance to tell her story. And it's going to be a ratings bonanza, probably. All the media, political junkies will be watching this, just, obsessed with it because politics has become now bigger than football in our country, the national pastime. And the battle lines have been drawn. And I'm really upset about this entire thing because so many people have jumped to conclusions and they have an opinion without hearing any facts. So many people I've seen on Facebook, from the moment they heard about this scandal, started immediately concluding that she's lying, and I've called her all sorts of names, without hearing her side of the testimony. How can anybody know whether someone's lying or telling the truth about a major scandal unless you actually listen to what they have to say? How can you jump to conclusions? And the answer is obvious. People believe those who they agree with ideologically. If you're a liberal, you believe liberals. If you're conservative, you believe conservatives are telling the truth. And that's really friggin' scary. Because one thing I know, being a criminal defense attorney for the last 25 years, is that anybody is capable of doing anything. That evil does not know ideology. There are good people on the left. There are bad people on the left. There are good conservatives. There are bad conservatives. Just because a person comes from a clean-cut background and looks the part and everybody thinks is a nice guy, that doesn't mean that deep down inside they're not capable of evil. Maybe Mr. Kavanaugh is guilty of everything that is being accused of him of doing. Maybe he's not. I have no idea. I haven't heard anybody testify about what actually occurred. But it's very wrong for people to jump to conclusions about these sort of things because you can't tell just because the way somebody acts. You have no idea what they're like in their private life. Whoever would have thought that someone like Bill Cosby would turn out to be a monster back when the Cosby Show was the #1 show on television? Nobody knew it back then. Okay, now, tomorrow, what's really scary, though, what's really offensive, is that tomorrow's big hearing is nothing more than a sham. It's not a true hearing because the results are preordained. We know exactly what's going to happen. Regardless of what Dr. Ford says, Kavanaugh will be confirmed as our next Supreme Court justice. Why? Because the people in the Senate do not care what this witness has to say. It's all for show. If it were a fair hearing, the outcome wouldn't be predetermined because nobody would really know exactly what the outcome would be. They would keep everything up in the air. They wouldn't make their decisions. They would say things like, I have to hear what the witnesses have to say before I decide what the outcome is going to be. But the leader of the United States Senate, Mitch McConnell, has already said that it's a done deal, that he's going to be confirmed. How could he say that when he has no idea what this witness is going to say? He's already agreeing to that Kavanaugh's telling the truth and this witness is lying, even though she hasn't sworn an oath that she's going to tell the truth and tell her side of the story. And that's very offensive that women who come forward who are in the powerless position are automatically disbelieved over the powerful man. I'm not saying she should be believed. What I'm saying is that people should have an open mind until they actually testify. And the other reasons why this is a sham is because, besides the fact that they've already said how they're going to vote and it's a done deal, the fact that they're not allowing people to put on evidence. The only people who are allowed to testify is Mr. Kavanaugh and Dr. Ford. No other witnesses are going to be able to testify. Mr. Judge, who is a very good friend back in high school with Mr. Kavanaugh, You know, he could have been brought in. He supposedly was an eyewitness as to what happened. Now, allegedly, he said that it never occurred, but there's a big difference between saying that to the press and swearing an oath punishable by perjury and 5 years in prison in the Senate itself. But they didn't want to do an investigation. They refused to do an investigation. A lot of the conservatives are arguing that, oh, there's no evidence and we should automatically confirm him as long as we can't prove guilty beyond all reasonable doubt because we need evidence. But they refuse to allow there to be any evidence. Witnesses who've come forward are not allowed to testify. They're not allowed to do an investigation to find out what other witnesses could possibly be out there. They're ramming it through. And it's only going to be less than an hour. This show of mine is 30 minutes. Only 2 of my shows is the entire hearing. The members of the Senate only have 5 minutes to question, and they're not allowed any other rebuttal questions. They're treating this as if it's no big deal. They don't really care. The outcome is predetermined. Just like a trial over in the former Soviet Union or in communist China was predetermined. It's a monkey trial, okay? It's a kangaroo court. And the reason why they're doing this, why are they even going through the motions of pretending that the purpose is to be unbiased? Because the Republican Party is scared to death. They're scared to death of the Me Too movement. They're scared to death that if they don't at least sit there and listen to what she has to say, that women who are more moderate and aren't hardcore conservatives will flock to the Democratic Party and vote against them. That's what they're scared to death of, okay? And to prove how gutless these bastards are, these men, because everybody on that panel is a man, are afraid to even ask the questions themselves and have paid an outside attorney to come forward and ask these questions themselves, a female attorney, a prosecutor, to drill this woman for a half hour or an hour, because they're scared of the way it's going to look on TV if they actually ask her the questions coming from a man instead of a woman. And we'll talk some more about my opinion of rape cases and what the public doesn't really know when we come back after this.
Hi, I'm Jerry from Hot Locks Hair Salon. We are conveniently located at 13414 US Highway 19 in Hudson. I've been a local hairstylist in our community for the last 34 years, 7 of which I was an educator. Our passion is the artistry of hair, and Hot Locks is here to help you achieve your perfect image. You can call us at 727-514-9978.
Many conservatives say that, oh, we shouldn't believe anything victims say because why did Dr. Ford wait so long? Why did she wait so long before telling her side of the story? Obviously, she's lying because she's a liberal, and liberals are all biased and they're all liars. Okay? Because a person should be believed because they're ideologically conservative. Because ideological conservatives, people who are strong in their faith, do not go out and commit sex crimes. At least that was the argument that was said 50 years ago when nobody believed that a Catholic priest, a religious conservative person, would be capable of a most heinous offense. Okay? People don't understand rape. I do, and here's why. For the last 25 years, I've been a criminal defense attorney. Okay? I've seen rape. I know about victims of women. How do I know this? I'm the guy that people hate. I have had in my career the job of cross-examining rape victims. I've defended rapists, both those who have been found guilty and those who have been acquitted. I've conducted harsh examinations and made women cry. I've represented people accused of child rape. I've cross-examined and jailed children. Okay? I'm not defending or apologizing for that fact. That's my job, and I swore an oath to uphold the constitutional right that every person is entitled to a defense. I've also represented women who've been raped in family law cases, women who've been victims of domestic violence. So I've seen it from both sides. And what I can tell you is that it's very common. It's not the exception for women who've been victimized to keep quiet. Most victims, statistics have shown, are afraid to come forward with their allegations. Why? Psychologically, they are damaged. A rape is not just a physical crime, it's a mental crime. Women feel humiliated. They blame themselves. It takes years of therapy for them to get over it, if they ever can get over it. They're afraid of the shame that it causes, the embarrassment. They feel filthy and dirty, and they don't want to tell the world about the most miserable moment of their life and share it with people, especially if something was famous, sharing it with millions of people. Being cross-examined by someone like me is really tough. It's very hard. And most women don't want to do that. That's why they don't come forward. Prosecutors will tell you how common it is for people to wait before they come forward. That's why a lot of states have gotten rid of the statute of limitations for sex crimes, because women are afraid to come forward. And it's not until many years later that they're able to say what actually happened to them. Okay, people say, oh, people should always be found not guilty of a sex crime if they waited a long time. And that is a factor that should be considered. But it didn't stop Bill Cosby from getting convicted. It didn't stop Jerry Sandusky from getting convicted. And all those children who were molested by Catholic priests, all of those children were eventually heard as well. It takes time, and it's very common for people to wait. People say, well, there has to be evidence. There has to be physical evidence. Most rape charges, there's no physical evidence. There's no eyewitnesses. There's no DNA. There's no fingerprints. A lot of these cases are the victim knows the person who committed the crime. And people are convicted every day on the victim's word. Okay? Bill Cosby was convicted on the person's word. Mike Tyson was convicted of rape just on a person's word. It happens all the time. The jury actually listens to the person and makes a decision as to whether somebody is telling the truth and who to believe and who not to believe. When you go to court, the judge lets you know whether or not the judge tells you through jury instructions, how do you go about deciding which witnesses to believe and who not to believe. And the judge asks the jury, at least here in Florida, to consider certain factors when deciding whether or not you should believe a witness or not. One of the factors they ask is, does the witness have an opportunity to see and know the things in which you're talking about? Does the witness happen to have an accurate memory? Was the witness honest and straightforward in answering questions? Did the witness have any type of interest in the way that the case should be decided? Did the witness's testimony agree with other testimony and other evidence in the case? Has the witness been bribed or given any money or any preferential treatment to give testimony in a particular way? Was there ever any pressure put on the witness? Did the witness ever make any inconsistent statements? Was the witness a convicted felon or not? And what was the witness's reputation for honesty? Now, the answer to a lot of these questions involving Dr. Ford, we don't know the answer to. We have to wait and see what she says when she takes a stand. And only then should we then make a decision whether we should believe her or not. But if this were a criminal court of law, legally, just because a person says this, people get convicted for that all the time. Now, I have argued many times that that's not enough as a criminal defense attorney, but legally it does happen, okay? But the burden of proof is different tomorrow than it is in a criminal case. In a criminal case, when a person is looking at going to prison for the rest of their life, a person can only be found guilty if the state attorney proves beyond all reasonable doubt that the person is guilty. If there's even the slightest amount of doubt, as long as it's reasonable, the jury must come back not guilty. So Mr. Kavanaugh probably should be acquitted based upon what I've heard. Okay? Maybe there's no guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. Even if she's believable, it's reasonable for someone to say, I have a reasonable doubt. But that's not the standard. Okay? That's the highest standard, and that's only applied in a criminal case. In a civil case in which you're suing somebody for damages, the standard is more likely than not. When the scales of justice are being weighed, which side do you believe the most? A little bit more for the one side. If you believe the plaintiff more, the plaintiff wins. You believe the defense more, the defense wins. So in a he said, she said argument, whichever side you believe the most, they win. Kavanaugh's not getting sued. But let's say hypothetically, Dr. Ford decided to sue Kavanaugh, okay, for his money, for what he did, and the statute of limitations hadn't run by. If you are more likely to believe her than you are to believe Mr. Kavanaugh, she's wins, and she could win millions of dollars from him. Okay, that's a civil case. That's what happened in the O.J. Simpson case when they got sued. Okay, but this is even a lower standard because no one's getting sued. Nothing is being taken from Dr. Kavanaugh that is his right. When you have money, you have a right to your money. So they have to prove beyond a burden, it's called preponderance of the evidence, which is more likely than not before they can take your money. But Mr. Kavanaugh does not have a right to be on the Supreme Court. So therefore, there's no obligation that the senators have to vote for him or vote against him based upon meeting any burden of proof. They can choose to allow him to be on the court for whatever reason they want, or say he's not allowed to be on the court for whatever reason they want. Okay? There's no burden of proof under the Constitution that deals with whether or not the Senate needs to give advice or consent for a particular candidate before they can be placed on the Supreme Court of the United States. And that's a very important distinction. Maybe he's not guilty when it comes to a criminal case, but to be placed on the Supreme Court, I would argue that whether you believe her or not, whichever story you're more likely to believe, that's how your vote could go. See you after this last break.
Hi, I'm Jerry from Hot Locks Hair Salon. We are conveniently located at 13414 US Highway 19 in Hudson. I've been a local hairstylist in our community for the last 34 years, 7 of which I was an educator. Our passion is the artistry of hair, and Hot Locks is here to help you achieve your perfect image. You can call us at 727-514-9978.
Welcome back to Fight Back. The GOP are total hypocrites. All these people who sit there and say that, oh, you got to believe Kavanaugh, okay? He's presumed to be innocent in America. You presume someone innocent until you can prove him guilty beyond all reasonable doubt, okay? All I can tell you, those people, these are the exact same people who had no problem saying that Bill Clinton raped Juanita Broderick. No, remember Juanita Broderick? Juanita Broderick is the woman who claimed that Bill Clinton had raped her 20 years earlier and then came forward. No physical evidence, no evidence of it, but these same people who are defending Kavanaugh had no problem saying Clinton was guilty of rape. And you know what was different about that person and Kavanaugh? Okay? Juanita Broderick signed under oath an affidavit saying that Bill Clinton never raped her. Okay? But that didn't stop our President Trump, when he was running for president in the debate with Hillary Clinton, from dragging Juanita Broderick to the debate and sitting her in the first row to stare at Hillary. Okay? And yet he is the person claiming that you got to believe Kavanaugh. He's a good man. You can't believe him. This same guy who's had a history of mistreating women, this man, President Trump, is defending Kavanaugh. This guy who always takes the side of the powerful man who is degrading to women. Okay, he always protects the man. He's the one who defended Roy Moore. Trump is the one who defended Bill O'Reilly. Trump is the one who defended Roger Ailes. And now Trump, when another woman came forward yesterday saying that Kavanaugh pulled his penis out and put it in her face when she was drunk at a party at Yale, trashed her credibility, says you can't believe her because she was drunk. That's exactly the modus operandi that was described by the third victim to come forward, Michael Avenatti brought forward, saying that that's his modus operandi. They get them drunk and then they molest them or gang rape them. And then, but Trump says you can't believe the woman because she was drunk. Don't believe her character, and said that you can't believe Michael Avenatti because he's a liar and you can't believe anything Avenatti said. Well, you know what? When Avenatti said that you were paying off porn stars, Mr. Trump, he wasn't telling a lie. You were. When Michael Avenatti said that your attorney, Mr. Cohen, was a crook and you defended him, who was lying? Not Avenatti. You were. You're Mr. Grab Women by the Pussy because you believe you're entitled. You come from that rich, privileged background where you believe that you can do whatever you want. That's what you said on the tape. You said that when you have money, when you have power, when you have fame, you could do whatever you want. You can just go up and grab them by the pussy. And you know what? That's exactly the type of mentality that Kavanaugh was accused of having, because he comes from a rich, affluent prep school background near Washington, D.C. How exclusive is this school that he went to? In the last 200 years, only one woman was ever nominated to the United States Supreme Court by the Republican Party. One woman. In the last year, 2 judges were nominated who went to the same high school. You know that Neil Gorsuch, who Trump put on last year, went to the same high school and was there at the same time as Kavanaugh. That's how exclusive this all-boys rich club is. Okay, you're groomed for power. And when you're groomed for power, you feel that you could do anything you want. Kavanaugh's roommate in Yale said that he was a drunk, and when he got drunk, he was abusive and degrading to women. And that he knew the second victim who came forward. And he said, knowing both of these people, I was his roommate, I believe her. Now, that's a relevant type of testimony that in a court of law they would consider. It would be called Williams Rule. But you know what? They didn't consider that because they're refusing to have a fair hearing or allow this woman to speak or allow anybody else to testify except for these 2 people in this kangaroo court. But you know what? Maybe 2 judges will have a profiling courage and vote it down and do the right thing. I doubt it. But all it takes is 2 Republican senators to do it, and hopefully one of them will do it. Because I would vote thumbs down against Kavanaugh. Okay? Why would I vote down Kavanaugh? Because the real reason they want him on this court, well, there's 2 different reasons. Trump wants him on the court because he said basically that if he became on the Supreme Court, he believes that you can't go after a sitting president, that you can't subpoena him, that you can't go after him for any crimes, you can't indict him, you can't investigate a sitting president. Trump loves that, and he was the only conservative of all the people that he could have picked to actually feel that way. Okay, the other Republicans, they want a conservative to be in the Supreme Court. You know why? They tell it's because it's Roe v. Wade. They tell the religious people that they want to protect babies, but that's not what they really want to protect. Okay? They want to protect the powerful. They want to protect the case law like Citizens United, which allows the rich millionaires to dump as much money that they want into politics. They want to be able to protect the ability for politicians to gerrymander so that the politicians pick their constituents instead of the constituents picking the politicians. They want to roll back the ability of the federal government to regulate polluters. They want to roll back protections given to a union. It's all about money. It's all about the rich and powerful, who the conservative judges are on their side. So I am telling you to fight back. Contact your senator and tell them to vote no. Vote no for Kavanaugh, okay? Because what matters is what the court's going to be like, not tomorrow, but for the rest of our lives. I'm going to be an old man in my 80s, on my deathbed, and that son of a bitch may still be on the court. Vote no. And I'll see you next week on Fight Back. See ya.